Canada will not stand by in the face of this threat. Since the onset of this crisis, Canada has stood proudly alongside the people of Ukraine and taken important steps to support the country, including imposing sanctions against those responsible for the growing conflict. We have now imposed sanctions with yesterday's announcement of over 189 Ukrainian and Russian individuals and entities, which is more than any other country in the world. And if you go back to the beginning of this crisis, Prime Minister Harper, Minister John Baird were the first out in support of the people of Ukraine when they were rallying on the Maidan in support of the European Economic Cooperation and Comprehensive Agreement. On March the 5th, Prime Minister Harper froze the assets of everyone that's involved in the Yanukovych regime. We then announced and pledged $220 million in support to help stabilize the Ukrainian economy. We followed that with our plans to isolate Vladimir Putin and the Russian Federation by not attending the G8 summit in Sochi, by then forming the G7, and making sure that we continue to isolate Russia on the international stage. Canada then proudly involved the Canadian Armed Forces in the NATO reassurance package, which included the deployment of a squadron of CF-18s. We also, of course, have the HMCS Toronto, before it was the Regina, in the Eastern Mediterranean. And we have a company of soldiers in northern Poland. So all segments of the Canadian Armed Forces, the Royal Canadian Navy, the Royal Canadian Air Force, and the Canadian Army are all involved in standing up for our NATO allies in the area. We have also been announcing support to stabilize the economy and the society of Ukraine. Minister Fast, of course we know Minister Baird and Prime Minister Harper has made numerous journeys to Ukraine in support of the new president, of the new government, and of the people. And Minister Fast was just there a few weeks ago, and MP Opitz and myself were proud to be part of that mission, as well as some of you here, like Victor and Christina. And so it is, and Lisa was there, and Oksana. And so it is important that we have the community involved in these types of trade missions, because not only is this conflict in Ukraine about what's happening from the standpoint of the aggression, but there is the social standpoints, there's the economic standpoints, and there is the whole reformation that needs to take place. So Minister Fast announced in his trip that we were going to relaunch the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement. He announced $19.6 million in support of agricultural producers. We announced just a few weeks ago the support of training of human rights for judges, lawyers, and human rights activists. And just last week, Minister Paradis announced another $8.1 million to strengthen the multi-party democracy and training new political participants. So I'm proud to be part of a government that has taken strong steps in supporting Ukraine and responding to the aggression that we've seen from Vladimir Putin and the Russian Federation. Now, I'm glad that today we're about to make an announcement with my friend and colleague, the Minister of National Defense, Rob Nicholson. He and I were elected together back in 2004. He originally was elected in 1984 and 88, but has held a number of various positions. Most recently was a Minister of Justice and now doing a great job as our Minister of National Defense. Minister Nicholson.
Well, thank you very much, James, and I'm pleased to be here with my colleague Ted Opitz. Mesdames et messieurs, c'est un grand plaisir pour moi d'être à la Baisse.
Pleasure that I'm here at CFB Trenton, which is the turnstile for the Aryan Mobility Force.
To be at 8-Wing Trenton today, the hub of Canada's air mobility forces. Canada's response to Russian expansionism and militarism in eastern Ukraine has been swift, targeted, and unequivocal. Our government's support to the people of Ukraine in the wake of Putin regime's aggression has been strong and clear, and it reflects the values that Canadians across this country hold. In light of ongoing hostilities and Russia's blatant support thereof, Canada has imposed severe sanctions on the Putin regime and continues its contribution to NATO's reassurance measures in Europe. As a result of the Putin regime's continued illegal occupation of Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula and its provocative military activity in eastern Ukraine, Prime Minister Harper announced yesterday additional economic sanctions and travel bans against Russian individuals, as well as further sanctions against Russian and Ukrainian entities. There has been heavy fighting and many casualties in the past 24 hours. Putin's failure to end his support to armed rebel groups constitutes a real threat to international peace and security. Canada will not stand by in the face of this threat, which is why I am pleased today to announce even further action that Canada is taking to help the people of Ukraine. Today, a CC-130J Hercules from right here at 8 Wing Trenton will be departing for Ukraine in the first of a series of flights to deliver non-kinetic military equipment that Ukraine will be able to use to secure and protect its eastern border against Russian aggression. This equipment will provide physical and medical protection to those in the front lines against the insurgency. The equipment provided will allow Ukrainians to better detect and track the movement of illicit goods and people. Ukraine has asked for this, and once again, we are delivering. The Putin regime has not provided any indication they are prepared to respect Ukraine's territorial integrity or use their control over Russian-backed agents to end violence in Ukraine. Canada remains committed to working with its allies and partners to preserve and promote a free, democratic, and peaceful world. We stand prepared to continue to apply further economic and political pressure if the Putin regime's military aggression and provocative actions continue. Ladies and gentlemen, Canada's support to the people of Ukraine since the beginning of this crisis would not have been possible without the expertise and the resources of the Canadian Armed Forces. It is thanks to our men and women in uniform that much-needed support and equipment, like the equipment we are sending to Ukraine today, can reach our allies and partners around the world quickly and efficiently, including during crisis. Our government has shown its commitment to the Canadian Armed Forces by ensuring our military members have the best equipment possible to get the job done. Equipment such as the new J-model CC-130 Hercules is today's backbone of military transportation in Canada. I would like to thank the team at 8 Wing Trenton for all the hard work that went into deploying this equipment. Know that your work and efforts are appreciated by all of us here in Canada and by those in need overseas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister.
Minister of Defense Rob Nicholson announcing a Hercules from CFB Trenton will leave today to deliver military aid to Ukraine on the eastern border. It will be one of a series of flights delivering non-lethal equipment.
Thank you very much.
Let's go back to CFB Trenton.
Paperless technology. Dear Minister, members of Parliament, Пресвященні отці, шановна громада. Thank you very much, my family. We are honored to be here today with you to witness as the material generously provided by Canadian Armed Forces will be dispatched for Ukraine for their brothers in arms. The protective gears and emergency medical kits are needed and anticipated greatly by Ukrainian soldiers. Due to the unilateral limitations imposed by Ukrainian side on the use of heavy weaponry in our densely populated parts of eastern Ukraine, Ukrainian troop soldiers, the foot soldiers, are bearing heavy losses. And this equipment will be able to save them, to bring more fathers back to their families and their kids and their sons, while renewing the control over the border of Ukraine, bringing back the rule of law into liberated cities and towns. But what I wanted to tell that by renewing the control of the board and bringing back the rule of law, liberated cities and towns, and reestablishing the sovereignty and integrity of our state, each and every soldier who will be equipped with protective gears, with maple leaf on it, will feel and understand the support and care of the Canadian brothers in arms. We Ukrainians are grateful to the allies for the coordinated efforts of enforcing the border guards and military with the equipment needed so much. And we already heard announced help from United States, Netherlands, Lithuania, other countries. But that's why I'm here, and I'm very grateful to Canada, which providing the very fast and real, and I have to tell you, the largest by today assistance, both in financial and material way. We will be using this equipment to end war as fast as possible. We will be able to save more lives, both troops and civilians, and even the separatists themselves. Will force them to lay down the weapon and get back to the tables of negotiations to end up this crisis which been incited by the Russian masters. Dear Minister, please rest assured that the Ukrainian government will do everything to get the equipment which will arrive in Ukraine tomorrow to the fighting troops as fast as possible. Your embassy in Ukraine is very much welcome to observe the process of delivery and report back to Canadian public the effect it will be making and the impact it will be making on Ukrainian forces and Ukrainian ability to fight for its independence and sovereignty. Taking this opportunity, I would like to thank once again the Canadian government of Canada and you personally for the staunch position and support, political, financial, military support to Ukraine. All these years, since the beginning, since the recognition of Ukraine as an independent state, Canada was next to Ukraine and we always felt the friendly shoulder of Canada. Starting from these days of revolution of dignity on Maidan in Kiev, through the very tremendously difficult period of treacherous annexation of Crimea, and through this war in our land, which was started with Russia, with their proxies in the east of Ukraine. We always knew that Canada behind us, Canada is close, and that's one of the allies who we really can rely on. It's not a surprise for me that Canada became, after all, the second motherland for so many Ukrainians here. Minister, thank you very much, members of parliament and Canadian Army. Thank you very much.